Welcome to the Gamer Base. This is ConArtist. We're counting down the top 10 anticipated games of 2014. Number 10, Titanfall. Now, I've never been a big mech guy per se, but Titanfall seems to be doing some interesting stuff with kind of multiplayer shooters, and especially with the movement. So there's going to be wall running and floating with the mechs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's really not wasting its time focusing on making it gritty and realistic and whatever the hell modern shooters are doing these days. It looks like it's just focusing on the mechanics that make things good, like how do I walk around and how do I shoot people, which is really what I want from a multiplayer shooter. Definitely keep an eye out for this one. Number 9, Project Spark. Now, my only concern with Project Spark is a game that came out a while back called Spore, and Spore was very similar in a lot of ways, if you haven't noticed. I mean, in terms of the ambition and the way the game design is being approached here, it is kind of similar to Project Spark, and the problem with Spore was that while there was this great creation kit, there was nothing to really do with it once you were done. There was no direction for the players to go in. Hopefully, the makers of Project Spark have learned from this and have kind of made a few more incentives for people to actually want to create these worlds, as opposed to just, I can share them with people. I mean, there should be something very substantial to do in these worlds in order to justify making them. That's really what you need from a kind of god game like this. Number 8, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS. Now, I don't own any of these platforms personally, but there's always one guy in your group you can kind of convince, or trick rather, to get a Wii, and basically the only reason you do this is for this game. It is for Smash Bros. Because there's really no other game like it on any other console. It's some of the most fun you can have with just 4 players. It's a really, really fun brawler, and I mean, I'm sure you've at least played this on the N64 when it first came out. Now, this game won't be doing anything terribly revolutionary. I think there'll be a few new characters, a few new arenas, and things like that, but overall it will be the same experience. I mean, which is a nice change from all the clones that have been coming out, like PlayStation All-Stars, which, while it was fun and everything, just felt kind of like cheating in a little way. I mean, you just felt kind of guilty about it, and then you wanted to have a shower afterwards. It was weird, it just wasn't the same, so hopefully Smash Bros. Will take us back to the kind of golden age of the game. Number 7, Dragon Age Inquisition. Now, the first Dragon Age did something interesting in that there was nothing terribly original about it. I mean, the gameplay was great, the story was great, and it was just a great time, and I think it's a great game. But there was nothing terribly new about it. I mean, it was your kind of stock fantasy RPG story. There was a great good and you're the great evil, and it's a kind of a heroic narrative we all know and we've all loved for a long time. This new one, though, seems to be going a different direction from 2. Now, I don't need to talk about 2 too much. We all know what happened there. Let's just not get into it. 3, though, EA seems to have kind of unleashed their hold a little bit on BioWare, letting them do their thing and take their time with the game. And they have been taking their sweet-ass time with it. So hopefully it is kind of a return to form. I don't know if they're going to be doing anything terribly original this time around, and I doubt it because it seems from the videos and the screenshots that have been coming out that this is your kind of typical RPG fantasy story, but that's fine because Dragon Age is pretty great. Number 6, Watch Dogs. Now, Watch Dogs was supposed to come out last year. It was delayed into this year, and depending on how you look at it, that's either a really good thing or a really bad thing. I'm going to look at it as a really good thing because this game, from just looking at it, you can tell it's not really that deep into development in the sense that it is very close to completion. I mean, so I'd like to think that all this extra time they're taking, or they've given themselves rather, is for them to kind of polish things up, make sure that the game is stage ready, and everything kind of works out. The only question is, will it go the Far Cry 3 Assassin's Creed route of kind of giving you a nonsensical story just to frame all the violence, or will there be something a little more cohesive and a little more, I'm not sure what the word is, I guess, down to earth, something a little more relatable, really. I'm not sure, but hopefully the main mechanic of this game will be the hacking. That'll be the focus of it, so we can have something a bit original from Ubisoft. I'm really hoping it works out, and I'm hoping Ubisoft has another hit on their hands. Number 5, South Park: The Stick of Truth. Now, I wouldn't normally be excited necessarily for a licensed property like South Park, but the developers here are the big news because it's Obsidian. Now, you might know them from games like Fallout New Vegas and Knights of the Republic 2 and Alpha Protocol. They make very interesting games, and more importantly, they make very interesting adaptations of existing titles. That's kind of their thing. And the fact that Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the creators of the show, are actually writing the game, this is all kind of a very nice formula for a pretty enjoyable game. They're also using the original art style, unlike the old ones, which used this kind of weird 3D and it was just awful. They're using the actual art style from the show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to poke at a lot of the silly things we have in RPGs nowadays that we just kind of take for granted. And I think it's just going to be really silly, over-the-top time. So definitely looking forward to this one. Number 4, Thief. Full stop. Apparently, we're just not putting numbers on games anymore because it's just too simple. Anyway, this is Thief 4. We all know that. It is an adaptation of the original franchise, which is fantastic. It's one of my favorites. And the developers here are Eidos Montreal, who recently had Deus Ex Human Revolution, which was a reboot of another very, very excellent franchise, the Deus Ex franchise, of course. So I think things are pretty much set. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. They've already proven themselves, I think, with Deus Ex. Hopefully, this will be a return to the completely stealth-focused mechanics of the first one, and not a kind kind of watered down thing, because very recently we've been getting a lot of watered down stealth games where you can kind of choose between stealth and just killing everyone, and so hopefully this one seems like the kind of game where it's not going to be a kind of murder fest. You are going to be a weaker person, you are going to be a thief at the end of the day, and hopefully you have to use kind of traps and things like that to kind of get around, and you won't be able to resort to too much just senseless violence to get what you need. So definitely looking forward to this one. Keep an eye out for it. Number 3, Dark Souls 2. Now the first Dark Souls should pretty much be mandatory just coursework in every game design school, because it has just this ridiculous challenge curve just all the way throughout it, where essentially you never feel like you can do anything the game asks you to do, and then about half an hour later you've already done it. Not because of an on-screen prompt, not because of some silly monitor, it's just because you just did it. You just figured it out, you kind of looked around your options, you tried and you failed a few times, and then you just end up doing it. And I think that's great. We don't see that a lot in games. Games that just don't handhold at all and kind of let you figure it out for yourself. And the fact that the game is so minimalist and so stark and everything feels so oppressive is just great. It really all is so cohesive, and it adds up to this experience where you constantly feel like you're alone and you're just against the entire world, and it's just fantastic. 2 seems to have lost none of that. Developers from Software are as Japanese as ever. I don't think they're adding any kind of Western influence in their game, and I think it's just going to be a purely just hardcore experience. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This might just end up being one of my best games of next year. Number 2, Game of Thrones by Telltale Games. Now, absolutely nothing is known about this game except for the fact that it's made by Telltale Games, the makers of The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, and I think that's reason enough to be ridiculously excited about it, because those 2 games were excellent adaptations of existing properties. What better place than Westeros for Telltale Games to kind of stretch their writing muscles? Will they use an original story? Will they use a story from the books or from the shows? Who knows? I think this might just be one of the most exciting projects of next year, even though we know nothing about it yet, so definitely keep an eye out for this one. And number 1, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I'm very excited about this game. For me, the Witcher franchise is really just one of the best of all time. I absolutely love it, and the reason is the way it approaches characters and the way it approaches its plot is just with a level of maturity that you don't see from other developers. You just don't see it. There's none of, hey, look at these boobs, or hey, look how much we're swearing, or controversy baiting for the sake of it. There's none of that. It really is just about how are you, as Geralt, going to navigate this fantasy world. And it's a fantasy world in as much as there are monsters and dragons and all that kind of stuff, but really it's just a very stark mirror to reality, to our reality, because no one in this world is good, no one is truly like evil, mustache-twirlingly evil, everyone's just kind of looking out for themselves, and that's really how it is. And so you as Geralt don't have a great monster to slay, you just kind of have to put up with the greed and the hate of society, and the racism of society, and the prejudice of society, and just kind of get through the day. It's really kind of refreshing to see that. Unlike Dragon Age, it's not a heroic narrative at all. You are not really the hero of the story, you're just a guy kind of trying to make ends meet. On the technical side, this is going to be open world. It's going to be apparently 30 times bigger than The Witcher 2's world, which I just can't even wrap my head around. The open world thing would be a little concerning in the hands of any other developer, but for me, CD Projekt Red have done absolutely nothing wrong in their entire span of developing games, so I am very confident that this game will be making an appearance on a very similar list next year, probably. That's been it. Thanks for watching. This has been ConArtist, and we'll see you next time.